You know, I feel like Ganondorf gets a bad rap. Nintendo is pretty insistent on making us think he's the evilest guy in all of Nintendo. I mean, in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, of the pair of villains, Ganondorf is the eviler one because he straight up betrays Bowser for no reason. People have told me all my life, Ganondorf is evil, we should kick him out of the country club. What did he actually do that's supposedly so evil? I mean, to be fair, just looking at Ocarina of Time, he destroyed Hyrule Castle and the town, likely killed all of the guards and the king, killed a few citizens, all of those innocent dogs, jailed Gorons, and threatened to feed them to Volvagia, created a phantom of himself to monitor the forest he filled with monsters. But that's after the 7-year time skip. What about before? If we look at Ganondorf's actions as a whole, it paints a very different picture. Let's take a look at Ganondorf's actions before the time skip. What did he actually do? He really only kills the Deku Tree. Kind of, supposedly. What proof do we have that Ganondorf actually did this? We have the word of the Deku Tree. The same tree that lied about Link's identity as a Hylian and withheld the fact that when he dies, he is reborn as a Deku Sprout. Can we really believe the Deku Tree? By not telling Link that he'll be reborn as the Deku Sprout, he gave Link and Navi the motivation to stop Ganondorf. Revenge. But was that revenge misplaced? Looking back at the Nintendo licensed manga of Ocarina of Time, while not canon, sheds a peculiar light on these events. We see that Goma creeps into the Deku Tree of her own volition. Ganondorf is nowhere to be seen. I think it's safe to say that the Deku Tree lied to us by telling us that Ganondorf put the curse on him. And it's just the start of the anti-Gerudo, anti-Ganondorf propaganda that we see in this game. Then, it's said that Ganondorf blocked off Dodongo's cavern. However, if we take the sirloin rocks out of our ears and actually listen to what Darunia has to say, he'll tell us that the boulder was actually there before Ganondorf showed up. Ganondorf actually offered to move the boulder in exchange for the spiritual stone. He expected to be compensated for his work. Darunia not only denied him, but attributed the original placement of the rock to Ganondorf, stating,
"Well, this trouble must have been caused by that Gerudo thief Ganondorf."
Darunia is such a racist. Typical Goron. And I mean, come on. Even if Ganondorf did block the cave, he used a giant rock. That's like blocking a fridge with a mountain of food. One of the Gorons even clearly states that they could eat any old rocks, but they'd prefer the sirloin rocks found in Dodongo's cavern. Are you kidding me? If my fridge was blocked with a food I didn't like, you'd better believe I'd eat that beetroot to get to that delicious double quarter pounder. Gorons are just lazy. And the exact same type of racial profiling happens with King Zora. Jabu Jabu, a giant fish, has parasites. Apparently, it's uncommon for a fish to have parasites. So King Zora just assumes that Ganondorf has something to do with it, with no actual proof. Jabu Jabu's stomach parasites weren't an immediate threat. Ruto being swallowed by him was entirely unrelated to Ganondorf's appearance. I bet King Zora would blame Ganondorf for his obesity if he had the chance. With this in mind, Ganondorf seems like a different kind of man to that of Darunia and King Zora. Given the chance, he largely leaves people alone and unharmed. Clearly the act of one so evil. The measures of his power are demonstrated by the fear he instills in the Deku Tree, and the fact that Impa, a seemingly powerful member of the Sheikah, is seen fleeing from him. The only time Ganondorf is seen using force prior to the time skip is when Link draws his sword, preparing for a fight. We're told many a tale of Ganon's wicked sorcery, yet we only see it post-time skip. During the first encounter with Ganondorf, he could easily kill Link and continue his pursuit of Zelda, but he simply knocks the kid down and runs off. Ganon, being the evil monster that he is, spared the life of a child, who drew their sword first, I might add, while clearly demonstrating the difference in power between the two, which is significant in Gerudo culture. The Gerudo are a race of strong women who respect power. This is shown when Link infiltrates the Gerudo fortress and defeats their prison guards, and is accepted as an honorary Gerudo, as opposed to the lazy, weak carpenters who get caught and tossed in jail immediately. Ganondorf was raised in this society that respected power among all else, so it helps us understand his actions later in the game when dealing with young Link. Within the Gerudo society, Ganondorf is seen as the most powerful and respected member. Trickling down the hierarchy, we have Nabooru, whose role is that of a second-in-command, and Avail, who grants Link permission to enter the Gerudo fortress after his show of strength freeing the carpenters. Then we have Kume and Kotake. Where they fit on the hierarchy isn't quite clear, but we see them as faceless men of sorts. Viziers pulling the strings from behind the scenes, acting as the puppet masters, who have seemingly larger goals in mind. But we'll come back to that. Of all the races, the Gerudo clearly have it the worst. constantly being stereotyped as a race of thieves. They're all but banished from the rest of the kingdom. The Goron and Zora have close ties to the Hyrulean royal family. This is shown through the significance of Zelda's lullaby, as well as an alliance being explicitly referenced by both Darunia and King Zora. Nothing of this sort is seen in the Gerudo Fortress, or said by the Gerudo people, implying no major connection. Essentially, the Gerudo are on their own, fending for themselves in a desert that they hate. It could be argued that they don't hate it, as the existence of an archery course is a clear sign of a happy society. But think back to Wind Waker for a moment. As Link is about to have his final battle against the revived Ganondorf, he stops us and recounts what it was like to live in the desert.
My country lay within a vast desert. When the sun rose in the sky, a burning wind punished my lands, searing the world. When the moon climbed into the dark of night, a frigid gale pierced our homes. No matter when it came, the wind carried the same thing: death. But the winds that blew across the green fields of Hyrule brought something other than suffering and ruin. I coveted that wind, I suppose.
So if we take that into account, it's quite clear that Ganondorf wanted a better life for his people, and that his original quest for the Triforce wasn't for domination, but a better life for the Gerudo. We can see this as we're introduced to Ganondorf, who was kneeling in front of the King of Hyrule to offer an alliance of sorts. I think this is fair speculation, as we only ever see the Hyrulean side of the situation, where Princess Zelda says, she saw it all happen in a dream. The motivations of Ganondorf are never addressed until he goes full-blown villain later in the game. At what point did Ganondorf lose his way? Between the time of the proposed alliance and the pursuit of Zelda, his lust for power exploded. What could inspire such a drastic change? I believe he was brainwashed by Kume and Kotake. I know it may seem a bit far-fetched, but follow me here. Noburu, the highest ranking Gerudo under Ganondorf, was brainwashed by Kume and Kotake in the Spirit Temple and forced to fight Link against her will. This proves that the Gerudo have access to brainwashing abilities of some sort. Ganondorf, after having been rejected by the three kings and failing to appeal to their senses, could very well have snapped. With the future of the Gerudo up in the air and the living conditions abysmal, Ganondorf would have been angry and in despair. What better time to brainwash someone than when they're at their lowest and most vulnerable? That's how Scientology does it. And when we see Noburu, she is trying to get the Silver Gauntlet, which will give her the ability to access deeper parts of the Spirit Temple in an attempt to put a stop to Ganondorf. But why would she want to put a stop to Ganondorf? Wouldn't she support a plan for equality for the Gerudo? You'd think so, but by this point, Ganondorf's goals were no longer pure. Noburu obviously got wise to the plans and was taking steps to prevent them. Kume and Kotake caught wind of this and tried to put a peaceful end to an attempted revolt through the mass brainwashing of the Gerudo. This is hinted at when one of the carpenters claims that there have been talks amongst the Gerudo that Noburu is working on a method to brainwash people, which implies one of two things. That either Noburu did create the method for brainwashing, and that Kume and Kotake stole it to use against the Gerudo, or they created the method themselves, and alongside the mass brainwashing, are attempting to use Noburu as a convenient scapegoat. This is further reinforced when the carpenters say that the Gerudo seem less scary after you defeat Twin Rover. Clearly, the brainwashing magic had been lifted. This is even further strengthened when you look at Ganondorf's next two appearances, the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. From Ocarina of Time, the series splits into two timelines, the adult timeline and the child timeline. In the adult timeline, Link kills Twin Rover, defeats Ganondorf, and the events of the Wind Waker happen. In the child timeline, Link changes time by warning everyone of Ganondorf before he has a chance to enter the Sacred Realm. It's important to note here that Kume and Kotake have not been defeated in this timeline, and are most likely immortal. Thus, the brainwashing is still in place when he is banished into the Twilight Realm by the Seven Sages. Through the events of Twilight Princess, it becomes evident that Zant is being manipulated by Ganondorf so he can seek his revenge on Hyrule and become its king, going so far as to possess Princess Zelda and use her as a tool to fight against Link. This is a drastic change of character from the Ganondorf that appears in Wind Waker. Ganondorf's intentions in this game are to remove the Flood and reunite Hyrule and re-establish its former glory. There isn't even mention of Ganondorf taking over apart from Boat saying that he's evil. Ganondorf's intentions are clearly more benevolent this time round. And given the previous evidence, it's clear that him using his power for good is due to the brainwashing no longer having effect due to Kume and Kotake being killed in this timeline. So to recap the core points, Ganondorf wishes for a better life for the Gerudo. He is rejected by the three holders of the spiritual stones, which is presumably the method through which he can obtain his goals. Clearly disgruntled and deeply saddened, he returns to the desert with his cape between his legs and is brainwashed by Kume and Kotake. Child Link and Nabooru infiltrate the Spirit Temple. Shortly after, Nabooru was captured and brainwashed. Adult Link frees Nabooru of her brainwashing and defeats Twin Rover. After defeating Ganondorf, he returns the Master Sword and the timeline splits. Ganondorf, from the child timeline, is sent to the Twilight Realm, prompting the events of Twilight Princess with a presumably still brainwashed Ganon. Ganondorf, from the adult timeline, is finally rid of his brainwashing, and sets about to undo the Great Flood and return Hyrule to its former glory, before being stopped by Link. This leads us to the conclusion that it's entirely possible that Ganondorf wasn't evil. He may have been the product of a failed attempt to give his people a better life, and was taken advantage of with a supposed brainwashing to become the monster we see in the latter half of the game. What may have started with pure, kind-hearted intentions ultimately ended with the darkness consuming him. Conforming to the proverb, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. While this isn't totally concrete, it's still an interesting idea to humour that Ganondorf is a more benevolent being than we originally thought, giving him a more interesting character overall. Well, that was until Skyward Sword came along and ruined it all by saying that Ganondorf was actually the reincarnation of a man wearing a sleeping bag with feet. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more Ocarina of Time content, check out this video where I got my 26-year-old non-gamer friend to play Ocarina of Time for the first time in his life. Also, a massive thank you to Casposaurus. We have been writing this video together for about 3 years now, and it's finally out. Thank goodness. If you want to check him out, he's got an awesome video on Link's Awakening and morality. It's really good. It's more Zelda stuff. Links in the description below if you're on mobile. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to me. I have nothing else in life.